Yo, what is up guys? XRP is at $1.38 right now in CoinMarketCap. This content is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Nothing in this video is a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold XRP or any other asset. Cryptocurrency involves substantial risk and you could lose some or all of your investment. Always do your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making investment decisions. Our first tweet comes from Ripple City. Just in, BlackRock XRP ETF odds surge. Here's my take. Prediction markets are currently reacting to a rumored BlackRock XRP ETF, despite no official filings from the firm. Market activity is instead being driven by three concurrent catalysts, including an Evernorth Nasdaq listing, high XRP short interest, and an anticipated September 15th vote on the Clarity Act. Our next tweet comes from Ripple. What does prime brokerage look like in the digital asset era? A prime broker gives you two things: access to trade everywhere and a balance sheet to do it efficiently. On-chain markets are rewriting both, and Mike Higgins, international CEO of Ripple Prime, explains how in under 60 seconds. Let's watch this video.
Crypto in 1 minute for a guy who's generally long-winded is difficult, but let's give it a shot. Hi, I'm Michael Higgins, and this is Crypto in 1 minute. How is prime brokerage evolving with digital assets? Prime brokerage is core infrastructure in traditional assets and plays the same role in digital assets. Prime brokers are the piping to inject credit into the ecosystem. Prime brokers do one thing, which is provide access. It's access to two things. It's access for institutions to trade a number of products across a number of liquidity destinations. And it's access to balance sheet to trade across those in a capital and cost-efficient way. Enter the digital asset era. Products are being created on-chain. Real-world assets are moving on-chain. As a result, prime brokers are being asked to give more access to more products and more liquidity destinations. As the market is unlocked and moved 24/7, prime brokers need to update their treasury management, risk management, liquidity management. And that's exactly what we've been building at Ripple Prime, taking practicing principles from traditional space and applying those into the digital asset space. That's Crypto in 1 minute.
Here's my take. Ripple Prime International CEO Mike Higgins emphasizes that prime brokerage in the digital asset era relies on universal market access and balance sheet efficiency. As on-chain markets transform these financial fundamentals, Ripple Prime is developing infrastructure that enables institutions to trade digital assets with the same ease as traditional markets. Smash that subscribe button and hit that like button if you believe XRP will reach $3 again this year. Next tweet comes from Crypto Barbie. Evernorth will become Nasdaq listed. It's happening with Ripple. Our next tweet comes from the Crypto Square. America is going all in on crypto. Fox Business is talking about US push to become the crypto capital of the world. And while everyone is watching Bitcoin, I'm watching XRP. Regulation, institutional adoption, payments, ETFs. XRP is right in the middle of it. Let's watch this video.
The administration is pushing for global crypto dominance in the US. Darren Botello is with us. He's on Capitol Hill, actually. In plain English, how are they going to do it, Darren?
Hi, good morning, Stuart. So the president is asking the Fed to review allowing crypto and fintech firms to store their money in the central bank. And this comes after Kraken got access to the central bank back in March. So they were the first. Now other banks want the same kind of access. But in Washington, as you know, an executive order is only as good as the president who's in the White House. The next person that takes over, they could completely change that. That's why in a Fox Business exclusive, Congressman Nick Begich is introducing a bill, he says, to lock in Trump's plan and officially establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Begich tells Fox Business that this is basically the new Fort Knox.
In order to maintain the sovereignty of the U.S. dollar and the strength of the U.S. dollar, you've got to have a strong reserve policy. That's why central banks around the world for so many years, thousands of years in fact, have held reserves on their balance sheet. We need to recognize that digital assets are the 21st century equivalent of those historical gold reserves.
So Begich wants the government to stockpile 5% of all Bitcoin, which is equivalent to how much of the world's gold the U.S. stores and reserves. And he already found a way to fund it without taxpayers. The Treasury is currently sucking up crypto assets tied to Iran through Operation Economic Fury. Begich's plan: seize the Ayatollah's crypto and drop it straight into the U.S. balance sheet. But he warns the GOP cannot afford to drag its feet. Conservatives have a tight 6-month window to pass this bill and lock that into law, while Republicans still control both houses of Congress. So, of course, as we know, the clock is ticking with the midterms coming up in November.
Here's my take. Fox Business is pushing heavy coverage of the US race to become the global crypto capital. While Bitcoin dominates mainstream headlines, XRP is the asset quietly anchoring the actual infrastructure across 4 key areas: regulation via the Clarity Act, institutional backing from giants like Goldman Sachs, utility through RLUSD and FedNow payments, and a massive $1.5 billion inflow across 7 spot ETFs. The next tweet comes from Bank XRP. Shorts are dominating XRP positioning right now. Bearish sentiment is building fast, but crowded shorts can become fuel for a sharp squeeze. Our next tweet comes from Bitcoin Magazine. Just in, $13 trillion Charles Schwab says, "We've really seen a rebirth of the debasement trade, whether you're looking at gold and precious metals or cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin." Let's watch this video.
We've really seen a rebirth of the debasement trade, whether you're looking at gold and precious metals or cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. As the presser started, we saw gold and Bitcoin both sell off, and they're slightly down on the day, but they've recovered. But the total tone of that conference was very hawkish, obviously, with investors starting to price in rate hikes. That does put the debasement narrative maybe back into check. And so I think crypto prices are reflecting to that news this morning. I will caveat that, Bitcoin's down less than 1%, which is actually a relatively low volatile day for something as volatile as Bitcoin. Generally, on any given day, it can rise or fall over 2%. And so it's been a muted reaction, and we think that's partially due to a rebalance that we've seen over the past week. The market got a little imbalanced in terms of shorts relative to longs and how close they were to spot prices. So we had a pretty epic short squeeze last week. And the market has now reset and is in a more balanced place from a leverage structure here. And so we've done work that's shown that liquidations of levered futures typically can explain 50% of Bitcoin's daily price move. And so with largely a reset in positioning in those markets, there seemed to be less fuel for the fire, so to say, today, given today's hawkishness.
Our next tweet comes from Crypto Barbie. The Bank of America CEO said at Davos 2026 that the financial industry will jump into crypto payments if regulators allow it. The Clarity Act will truly open the institutional floodgates. Our next tweet comes from Crypto Barbie. Mass institutional adoption coming in 2026-27. Remember when David Schwartz said back in 25 that we are on the cusp of mass institutional adoption? This wave of institutional adoption over the next year or two. Let's watch this video.
I feel like we really are on the cusp of a mass institutional adoption, both of DeFi and of other blockchain technologies. I think this is also like one of the key obstacles to mass retail adoption. A lot of people in the space previously thought that retail adoption was like the big wave, but I think institutional adoption is a precursor. You have to connect to where people are. You have to go to where the value is. You can't build a new financial system from zero, ignoring the existing financial system where everybody's money is, where all the value is, where the real world is, trillions of dollars in value. You can't just say, oh, forget about all that. Let's just build something new over here. It doesn't work. And so I think this wave of institutional adoption over the next year or two is going to be what's going to pave the way for mass retail adoption. And then we can deliver on those promises. Like, we all want to bank the unbanked, but like the unbanked, like they have to be able to spend their money to buy groceries and pay their phone bill, and so we have to have that institutional connectivity. And I don't think there are any obstacles. I think that's and I think this conference shows that.
Our next tweet comes from Ripple XRP. Boom! It's official. Nasdaq has approved XRP Treasury. Our next tweet comes from Crypto Barbie. Bullish news. Patrick McHenry asserts that the Crypto Clarity Act Senate vote can pass on September 15th. September 15th will be a good vote for crypto. Let's watch this video.
When people are starting to murmur and complain, as they are right now, it tells me that September 15th will be a good vote for crypto.
You have argued that the Clarity Act is the most important technology law since the Telecoms Act. Does this thing actually get passed before midterms?
Well, we'll see September 15th. All signs lead to senators being uncomfortable and going in a bunch of different directions this August. That tells me, as a longtime hand here in Washington, that it will be a good vote September 15th. when everybody's agreeing well ahead of a vote, it is bad news. And when people are starting to murmur and complain, as they are right now, it tells me that September 15th will be a good vote for crypto. But leading into the midterms, the open question here is if they can't get it done September 15th, I think they will. What happens then? And the midterms were going to be a very big indicator of the power of the crypto voter and the activism from Fairshake on making sure that those messages are heard.
I'm glad you brought in the
voters.
crypto voter. Do you think the crypto voter is actually powerful, or do you think what's powerful is the crypto lobby?
I think it's the crypto voter enables the crypto lobby to actually get things done. The fact is the banks have been well arrayed here in Washington for a very long time, for generations. Crypto's only been around here in Washington for less than 5 years. And so they're trying to make headway. But what they're trying to convey to policymakers is that their voters at home care very much about these innovation policies and will punish those that stand in the way of it. This midterms, that may be important. But going into the next presidential election, you see a Democratic Party wanting to be pro-technology just as well as the Republicans do. And I think that will have a lot of sway, not just in the midterms, but in the next presidential.
Real quick, if this helped, press the like button. It tells YouTube to show this to people who want the truth, not hype. And press the subscribe button if you're done being sold the moon. Avar got your next one right here. Go.